That all changed today, and those shipments became subject to the 145% tariffs President Trump put on China.
Do you think this is kind of the beginning of the end of fast fashion?
For years, America sold itself as the safest port for global giants. But in the past 24 hours, that promise cracked like cheap glass. Stellantis hit the brakes on 97 years of minivan pride. Apple rerouted millions of iPhones through Chennai. Fast fashion rockets Temu and Shein slammed into a 145% tariff wall. MGA Toys evacuated Santa's workshop. And Alcoa diverted Canadian aluminum across the Atlantic. 5 sectors, one message: survival now lies beyond U.S. borders. With every forklift that rolls onto a foreign dock, billions in wages, taxes, and leverage roll away too, almost overnight. If the richest market on Earth can't keep its crown, what happens when the next 10 Titans bolt tomorrow?
The plant shut down because those cars sell to Americans, and they're not sure how to do that in this environment.
Stellantis didn't just idle an assembly line, it flipped a red switch on North America's auto heartbeat. Overnight, 900 union jobs vanished, a 2-week halt froze a factory that has cranked out minivans for 97 years, and executives admitted the simple math. Profit margins hover around 6%, but the new 25% tariff multiplies costs fourfold. Early signs suggest this isn't a pause for maintenance. It's a preemptive tourniquet before deeper cuts bleed the balance sheet dry. Suppliers felt the shock first. One shutdown strands more than 10,000 parts plant workers across Michigan and Ontario, and freight contracts worth $5 billion go dark until further notice. Stop the bleeding, a Stellantis VP muttered, yet logistics managers whisper that rerouting production to Brazil or Turkey is already penciled in. Sources warn the layoffs will ripple outward. Rail yards lose cargo, steel mills slow orders, diners outside the gates serve half-empty lunch counters. If this trend continues, the very tariff designed to bring factories home could become the wrecking ball that demolishes them. Dealers report Chrysler inventory stacking up, while customers hold back, waiting to see if the extra duty will shove sticker prices skyward. And lurking above all is the brutal calculus of modern automaking: relocate fast or lose the entire platform. The canary in America's industrial coal mine just fell silent. If a century-old plant, freshly retooled and segment-leading, can't survive one policy shift, what does that say about the next wave of factories still clinging to U.S. soil?
I had a little problem with Tim Cook yesterday. I said to him, Tim, you're my friend. I treated you very good. You're coming in with $500 billion, but now I hear you're building all over India. I don't want you building in India.
Apple's answer wasn't a press release. It was a logistics tornado. In a single quarter, 3 million iPhones streamed from Chennai to U.S. docks, while shipments from China collapsed 75%. Cook's architects didn't wait for another White House tweet. They rerouted silicon, solder, and supply lines in what insiders call Project Vanishing Point. Each iPhone dodging a 25% tariff spares Apple roughly $120 in extra cost, money that would have scorched margins and jolted consumers. But tariff math runs deeper. Analysts calculate that building an iPhone entirely in Texas would push retail prices near $3,000, triple the current tag. Meanwhile, Apple must feed America's appetite for 65 million units a year. Factories in India now ignite night shift expansions, Shenzhen lines dim. Workers in Andhra Pradesh cheer overtime bonuses, while suppliers in Guangdong quietly shutter housing blocks. Early signs suggest a continent-scale economic transplant. Chip fabs follow, glass plants follow, then the app developers who test on early hardware follow. If this trend continues, the U.S. could surrender its most lucrative tech ecosystem without firing a shot. Lawmakers who once counted Apple as proof of American innovation now watch its bones being extracted in real time. Sources warn that component makers, from tiny haptic motor firms to billion-dollar lens producers, are already courting Indian tax breaks, leaving Rust Belt towns begging for contracts they once took for granted. And the next domino? Services revenue depends on localized hardware. When the brains of America's favorite gadget sit 12 time zones away, how long before its corporate heart, its data centers, even its design teams quietly migrate to
President Trump signing an executive order that will quadruple the previously announced tariffs on those packages.
Fast fashion's meteoric business model detonated the moment the de-minimized loophole died. Overnight, every box under $800 arriving from China to an American doorstep now carries up to a 145% duty. No discounts, no exceptions. Temu fired the first flare. All direct from China shipments halted, warehouses scrambling to reroute stock already in transit. Within hours, Shein slashed ad spend, froze influencer campaigns worth $65 million, and warned shoppers that prices on its famous $5 tees could double. Early signs suggest a consumer shockwave. Marketing platform data shows nearly 30% of U.S. customers ready to quit if prices spike. Resale apps have reported a 42% surge in new listings since the order dropped. Mall retailers cheer, but only briefly. They rely on the same Asian factories now juggling new paperwork, longer routes, and rising insurance quotes after carriers tacked on tariff volatility fees of 12% per container. If this trend continues, the ripple hits ports next. Los Angeles estimates a loss of 1.2 million TEUs this fiscal year, translating into 22,000 longshore and trucking jobs at risk. Customs brokers warn of midnight backlogs, as every parcel now needs full declaration. Sources whisper that some 3PLs are quietly chartering flights to Mexico, betting on cross-border trucking to dodge West Coast gridlock at triple the cost. Fast fashion was built on speed. Tariffs just poured molasses into the gears. If an extra day kills viral style, what happens when every hour on the runway now costs hard cash and American closets run out of cheap options? MGA Entertainment didn't wait for the next tariff headline. It sprinted. The California toy maker behind Bratz and LOL Surprise is yanking 40% of its production out of China within 6 months, rerouting molds and paint lines to India, Vietnam, and Indonesia. Why run so fast? Trump's tariff ladder has already pushed landed costs on China-made toys up by 30%, shredding holiday season margins. Engineers now scramble to redesign dolls around cheaper regional plastics, while logistics managers negotiate factory slots in ports that have never handled a U.S. Christmas rush. Walmart and Target feel the shock first. Buyers estimate at least 15% of fourth-quarter toy SKUs need immediate replacements. Some SKUs may simply vanish from shelves. One big-box exec admits stocking plans are now hour-to-hour, with contingency orders adding $180 million in unbudgeted freight. Parents hunting this year's must-have doll may find empty pegs or a price tag inflated by $12 overnight. Suppliers further down the chain groan louder. Coloring book printers in Kentucky lose bulk orders. A Missouri plastics recycler pauses a $25 million expansion because feedstock contracts evaporated. Early signs suggest a brutal new rule. If a product can't dodge tariffs, retailers will dodge the product. Cliffhanger: Santa's workshop just broke its lease. If toys, the most impulse-driven goods in retail, can't clear U.S. borders without tariff scars, what happens when the same wall rises between American shoppers and life's bigger essentials? Alcoa's chief didn't mince words. Tariffs just flipped the North American supply map. The U.S. melts 4 million metric tons of aluminum a year, yet imports 2.7 million from Canada, the river now hit by duties up to 20%. Overnight, Alcoa rerouted contracts worth $1.3 billion to Europe, where trade terms stay steady and margins survive. Ports tell the story. Atlantic bulk carriers are booked solid. Great Lakes cranes stand idle. Appliance makers project a 9% materials bump by fall. A Detroit EV startup froze a $240 million battery case order. Early signs suggest this detour is permanent, not tactical. If this trend continues, auto, aerospace, even defense will face a metal math they can't solve. Building a U.S. smelter would demand 10 gigawatts of electricity and permits stretching past 2035. Boardrooms won't wait that long. Analysts whisper the next pivot could be rolling mills, the plants that press aircraft skin and beer cans. And remember, Aluminum underpins everything from soda tabs to missile casings. Cliffhanger. Aluminum was once the metal of the future. What happens when that future is stamped, made elsewhere, and every rivet in an American jet now carries a tariff surcharge? A quiet evacuation is replacing the old American dream of built here, sold here. 5 sectors have already slipped the leash, mapping fresh supply lines that detour around every red, white, and blue checkpoint. Their spreadsheets prove a brutal truth: loyalty costs more than leaving. But tariffs don't just chase factories, they chase innovation. When the next iPhone chip, the next minivan engine block, the next aluminum wing spar is born abroad, the jobs follow. And so does the leverage. What if the real toll isn't measured in lost paychecks or higher price tags, but in a future where America must import its own prosperity, one tax crate at a time?